What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be going through all the reinforcements in the game and ranking them from worst to best. I have done these kinds of ranking videos in terms of all the heroes in the game, so if you do want to go and check those out, then I will leave a link on screen at the end of the video. Now, before I get started, I do just need to make it clear, because generally with these types of videos some people don't tend to understand, but this is all just my own opinion. There's really no right or wrong with this kind of stuff, so just keep that in mind. And if you do tend to disagree with my list, then definitely feel free to leave your own rankings down below, as I dare say probably 99% of you guys will have a completely different ranking than mine. So anyway, with all of that out of the way, we're going to get started, and coming in at the number 12 spot we have the Imperial Aerial class. Now, by no means are these guys bad, but to me they do stand out as easily the worst reinforcements in the game, mainly just due to their blaster being paired with their jetpack. With all of the other aerial classes, they tend to have a medium to long range weapon, which really helps when you're trying to aim in mid-air, and overall it just seems to suit the playstyle of the aerials a lot better. With these guys, however, having an LMG style blaster doesn't really seem to work as well, and so these guys do unfortunately come in last place on the list. Moving on to spot number 11, and this one goes to the Resistance Aerial class. Now, looking at these guys objectively, they are actually really good and arguably deserve to be a little bit higher on the list, but for me personally, I can't seem to do as well with these guys as I can with most of the other aerial classes in the game. I really don't know what it is about the EL-16, but I cannot for the life of me seem to aim this thing at all. It's the same for the Assault class and for Finn as well. I just cannot do well with this blaster, and so that is mainly the reason why I'm rating these guys so low. But like I said, definitely not a bad class at all, but for me they do have to come in 11th place. Next up we have another aerial class, surprisingly, and this one is the First Order Aerial, coming in at number 10. I'm seriously going to sound like a broken record by the end of this video, but these guys really aren't bad by any means. I do occasionally go on some pretty nice streaks with these guys, but compared to the rest of the classes they just don't seem to do it for me. Their blaster is pretty decent, but for me it's outdone by the Clone Aerial with a faster rate of fire and a higher damage output, so again, not a bad reinforcement, but unfortunately they do have to come in at the number 10 spot. Next up on the list is the First Order Flame Trooper, coming in at number 9. These guys were really hard to rank, honestly. They're arguably one of the best reinforcements in a close quarter situation, and especially against heroes they seem to absolutely dominate, but the reason I've left them so low is because anything over mid-range becomes pretty much impossible. If you guys watched my Enforcer Mythbusters episode, you'll know just how short the range is on the flamethrower, and so like I said, even though in the right situation they are arguably one of the better classes, overall they do lack a little due to having such a short range weapon. Next on the list we have another class that is kinda in the same boat as the last one, and this is the Wookiee Warrior, coming in at the number 8 spot. These guys used to be absolutely dominant, and they were almost non-arguably the best reinforcement in the game for probably like 7 or 8 months there, but with some recent nerfs as well as some of the new reinforcements, they have gone down pretty dramatically on my list. Just like the Flame Trooper, they are still very useful up close, however at medium to long range they do suffer a fair bit because of the bowcaster, and honestly the only thing that stopped them from dropping further is that deadly thermal imploder. Coming in at the number 7 spot is the B2 Super Battle Droid, and this was a very tough choice indeed. Honestly, from here all the way until number 1 it got really hard to actually decide on each ranking, and so the difference between these guys and number 1 really isn't too much at all. The twin wrist blaster on these guys, especially when you use it in the overload setting, is absolutely crazy powerful. This thing can melt heroes in just a matter of seconds, and when you combine that with the health buff and those trusty wrist rockets, these guys are definitely a beastly class to play as. Next up we have their twin brothers in the B2 RP Rocket Droids, coming in at the number 6 spot. These guys have that same twin wrist blaster as well as their jetpack, which makes them even more useful, as you can get into some really deadly spots on the map, and you do always have a fallback with that jetpack as well. Honestly, these guys could have been a lot higher, but their dash is easily the worst dash in the game. I don't know whether this is broken or whether it's done for balancing reasons or what, but their dash is almost pointless, and so that does unfortunately put them a little lower down on the list. Coming in at the number 5 spot we have the Clone Jump Troopers, and before the new reinforcements came, these were arguably my favourite reinforcements to play as. Their DC-17s are absolutely deadly, especially with such a high rate of fire, and in terms of their blasters they aren't too much different from the B2 droids, yet that longer dash definitely does give them a pretty big advantage. I've seen people take down hero after hero with these guys without too much trouble at all, and that definitely does go to show just how useful they can be in the right hands. Now, coming in just ever so slightly ahead of the Clone Aerial is the Rebel Aerial at the number 4 spot. The difference between these two for me is barely even noticeable at all. I tend to do just as well with either of these guys as I do with the other, yet for me there are two things that I like more about the Rebel Aerials. For one, I am more of a burst fire kind of guy. I generally tend to prefer the burst weapons in any game, and two, these guys have one of, if not the best dash of all the aerial classes, which definitely does make more of a difference than most people probably think. So finally, heading into the top 3, and at the number 3 spot we have the Death Trooper, which in terms of just the look and the feel is easily my favourite reinforcement in the game. These guys look and sound so badass. I love their voice mufflers and just how big and imposing they are compared to all the regular stormtroopers, and not only that, but they are absolutely beastly as well. Their Sonic Imploder is easily one of the most handy abilities of all the reinforcements in the game. Revealing those enemies through walls is so useful, and then mowing them down with your overload ability is arguably one of the most satisfying feelings in all of Battlefront 2. Coming in at the number 2 spot we have the ARC Troopers, and there is a reason why these guys aren't at the number 1 spot, but I will explain that in just a second. Regardless of first or second place, these guys are absolutely mental. They're dual wield DC-17s and their combination of abilities is genuinely better than some heroes at times, and I've been having so much fun with these guys ever since they were added just a month or two ago. Now at close range, they're no doubt the best reinforcement in the whole game, yet the reason I've left them at the number 2 spot is just because they aren't as well rounded as some of the other classes in the game, but overall they are absolutely deadly in the right situation, and they're easily one of my new favourite additions to Battlefront 2. Now finally, coming in at that number 1 spot is the BX Commando Droid. So these guys are probably the single addition to Battlefront that I've enjoyed the most, and honestly I'm not sure what it is, but ever since they were added I've been absolutely hooked on playing them as often as I can actually get a chance. It was a real toss up between these guys and the ARC Troopers for the number 1 spot, but like I mentioned, the ARC Troopers are mainly suited to close quarters only, where the Commando Droids are pretty much good at every range, and they do also have those deadly vibro swords which make them just as deadly as anyone at close range anyway. So that is it for my entire ranking of the reinforcements in Battlefront 2. Like I mentioned, this is all just my own opinion. There's no right or wrong really at the end of the day. Even the ones ranked down towards the bottom are all absolute beasts to use anyway. If you did enjoy the video guys, make sure to leave a like down below to help support the channel. Like I said, feel free to leave your own rankings down below to see how they compare. I'm gonna guess that almost everyone will disagree with my list, which is of course perfectly fine, but if you do, then definitely let everyone know of your own rankings. If you are new to the channel, then feel free to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on any more Battlefront 2 videos or live streams. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.